What is up, guys? PCP coming at you. Very old friend of the channel on deck for you today in an extremely sad condition. As you can see, my beloved Diana Storm Chaser, and that's right, I did say it right, I didn't f*** it up. It is a Storm Chaser because it has a Diana Chaser breech, a Diana Stormrider, pretty much everything else. This is my first 22 caliber rifle from Diana, and I was absolutely thrilled with it for the majority of the ownership, except for a few specific things. First off, the breech that comes from this from Diana is set up for a right-handed shooter. But that means that every time you want to go ahead and cock the bolt, you have to take your trigger hand off of the trigger position and reset it on the bolt. This is more the style I like to do things in, where I'm cocking the bolt with my left hand and then using the right hand to go ahead and cycle the trigger. There's a lot of really positive things that Diana absolutely packaged into this small, affordable PCP air rifle. However, the last time I had it out at the range, I had all the recipe for success put together for myself, and the check valve on the fill port started to leak. Motherfucker. Alright guys, sadly, just as you can on an expensive air rifle, it looks like this guy's starting to leak right here. It's really kind of a sad eventuality also, because I was doing really well that day, at least for my own poor skill set, and I felt like, you know what, man, one day I'll get to fixing this. This got added to the list of things that I will eventually fix one day, which is a very lengthy list at this point, and then here we are like a year later, finally ready to go ahead and take a shot at fixing this. I don't really give my Dianas a whole lot of love, but something inside me just made me want to go ahead and really focus on the Diana platforms and develop an entire line of products for them. So here we are today at the very inception steps of that plan, fixing our test gun. I'm excited about this. Now, to the manual reviewer who's no doubt looking at my video right now, this is within the written rules of YouTube. So instead of discriminating against me, maybe just take the second to see that this is literally an air gun and not a firearm being worked on as dictated by your written guideline. Now we don't have to worry about degassing this because it's already got no pressure in it, but I'm going to go ahead and start with, I think it's this orange one. I think the orange one fits this guy. No, it's not the orange one, it's the yellow one. People always give me a bunch of crap for using these rainbow wrenches, but when it comes down to repetitive stuff like this, there is no better way to be able to see like what size stuff is than to color code the tools. I do like that. Pulling off the UTG Leapers AccuShot Bug Buster, and I do love the Bug Buster line, and I'm telling you, I came to the table with all the recipe for success necessary when I went to the range that day, and the rifle just didn't play well with me. This little scope has about 67 million different colors. Oh my god. Very responsive, very compact, 3 through 12 with a 44mm objective on the front end. Good UTG stuff, you can't go wrong with the Bug Busters. I didn't really do anything fancy on this guy. All I did was go with the UTG Magnum dovetails and then leave the dovetail block up on top as it came from the factory. There are a couple of fasteners that go ahead and hold this in place typically on the Diana Stormrider, and you will find that 1, 2, and 3. Oh, tight, dude. How tight did I think I needed to get this thing, man? I really torqued this thing down. Easy. Something just to go ahead and note, on this Diana platform there's a lot of little pins and such that go ahead and keep things in place inside this trigger and keep it functional. As you can see, I've got some PETG tape, some really high temperature powder coating tape. It's super thin, super tough, and it really sticks well in a situation like this. I put it on both sides so that I could go ahead and retain those pins even when I keep it out of the, even when I pop it out of the stock, right? I don't want to pull it out of the stock and have all the pins fall through my deck. But it's like I also took the time to go ahead and try and nest this guy in here. I put a little bit of GoPro adhesive, it looks like, in there to really bed it down in the stock. These were all attempts at accuracy. When you go to swap the barrel on this, whether it be from the Diana Chaser pistol setup or the longer barrel rifle for the Stormrider in front of you, this is where you're going to want to start. You've got these 3 set screws up top. No, I'm going to lose one of these. Please don't come out. Oh, it did go. Oh my god. Okay, I don't know where I thought that these accessories were going to go when they mounted them, but these are small bolts. They shouldn't have been that tight, right? I mean, good lord. My barrel, giving it the old thumb wedge, popping her off. Look at that. Now this is all very important stuff that you're definitely going to want to pay attention to if you ever go to service or accessorize your Diana Stormrider. First off, there's 2 O-rings there. You're going to find these 2 O-rings. And you're going to find that transfer port is only there on one side, right? The top side just has detents for the screw, while the bottom side's actually where you're going to find the transfer port, excuse me, that actually works. It's kind of tougher to do on the barrels that have the iron sights like this, but on the factory barrel, it's actually easy to put this upside down and completely block off the path of travel for the gas that propels the pellet. Another thing you're really going to want to pay attention to is there's a small O-ring right there, and that's actually your breech seal where the probe goes up against it. Got this trigger guard guy, got all of our bolts undone precariously over my extremely well-built deck. Then we have the action, the tank. I keep my fill probe in stuff because I lose my fill probes a lot. So I just keep my fill probe in my tank. At this point, it's going to prove a benefit for us because what we're going to be able to do is utilize this fill probe kind of like a wrench. Oh, we can. This is my first time ever being in the guts of this thing, so if I'm a little bit slow, that's why. That's why. Okay. There's like a flathead screwdriver down there, flathead screw down there. So I'm gonna get the right tool for this, and then we'll go ahead and pop it out and see what happens. It's super easy to pull this out. That required almost no gumption whatsoever. You have to remember that I'll only give it a little bit when I go to torque it. Let's see if you guys can see the light shining through here. Parts tray, old O-ring, new O-rings. Try hard to get this right. Oh, they look the same, dude. They look the same. Just for reference, this is the completely factory specific AEA fill probe O-rings. So if you have this problem, you know what's up. Okay. Let's go ahead and throw it back together and see if we can pressurize it and get it to hold a little bit of gas. Okay. I'm gonna try to give her the gas, dude. I mean, realistically, I don't know what else I would really need to button up at this point because it definitely will hold pressure like this. When I was testing and tuning a few different things on this rifle, I definitely do know for sure it will hold pressure like this, and I would like to see whether I'm successful or not as soon as possible. So here we go. I'm gonna step away from it though. Low-key, pressure cylinders really terrify me, so where's it leaking from? Transfer port? Okay, overcame the valve a little bit there. Okay, valve was sticking. Kill it. Gauge might be loose. Don't look at the gauge. See if that quiets it up. So I don't know exactly what happened, but I guess I must have really over-torqued on this thing because I went ahead and destroyed the gauge. Alright dudes, a couple hours later, and I've had a little bit of dinner to go ahead and mull the problem over. Turns out, this small gauge that I destroyed actually does pop right out of this adapter right here. Went all the way through my entire collection of gauges that I have, and it turns out that the only gauge that's the exact same size thread pitch as this old Diana gauge is going to be your AEA stuff. Just thread the old AEA gauge right on into there. Use the correct and appropriate O-ring seal. Throw a back lock on there, 9/16 sizing. Throw a 24mm on the gauge itself. You can feel it when the O-rings really kind of engage, and that's the direction that I'm going to go with this. When it feels right, probably right. Oh yeah, it's working. It's only rated for 3,000. Right about there. That's a seal, gents. Alright dudes, it's the next morning. It seems like the old Diana Storm Chaser here has definitely held some pressure overnight, but it's also lost a little bit. Since I don't really have any like calibration data or anything on my new gauge, I'm just going to go ahead and use a gauge that I do have calibration data on so I can see exactly where the pressure is before I go and overfill a rifle like this. This one's only rated for 200 bars, so you don't want to go ahead and accidentally overfill a relatively low pressure vessel like that with, you know, more than 200 bar. You should never ever under any circumstances exceed the rated values for the pressure vessels you're using. It's our AEA gauge here on our Diana Storm Chaser. Still exactly the way it was last night. I just got tired of messing with it and went to bed. So here we are, next day, new try. Boom. Crack the valve. Oh my God. Okay. That's right about where I want to be. So that's interesting. That's actually not that bad. I'm just under 200 bar on my big gauge, and I'm actually just under 200 bar on this gauge also. So that's comforting, right? Comforting to be able to see that they're close in value and this isn't going to go ahead and accidentally give me a potential safety issue. Alright guys, now if you're a fan of the channel and subscribed, which at this point you definitely should be, you would know that I don't clean my barrels very often at all. I do have my super Walmart cleaning kit, which now houses all my patchworm stuff also that I've gotten from mini GP racing over the years, but I'm going to go ahead and take the extra time on this project because I really want to get the most out of it and just clean this barrel for you guys. I'm not going to do too terribly much talking because I have no expertise. I'm just going to go with what feels right and film it. But if you like what you see here, definitely do throw it down in the comments below. Maybe hit that like button for me. Let's run some dry patches through and see if we can make an improvement with that. Got a bunch of ballistol in there already. First clean patch with no ballistol. Starting to lighten up a little bit. Now check this out here. We have on our far left, we have the very first patch that went through there, and then we have the progression of cleanliness that occurred. The first three are all ballistol soaked patches, and then these last three here, these are not soaked patches at all, just clean cotton. I think this one might have been a little bit thicker, maybe a little bit more abrasive. It kind of looks like burlap. Let's go ahead and get this barrel mounted up and start pulling some measurements off of it. The first major thing you're going to really want to pay attention to, what is the measurement right here? What is the outside diameter of the barrel? Second thing you're going to want to pay attention to, what is the actual diameter of this air tube, this air cylinder itself? What's the actual external diameter of this piece here? Third and finally, when these two are aligned the way they should be, what is your gap distance between the barrel and the air tube? With those three measurements, with those three things, you pretty much can create anything you want to in a digital CAD file, and then go ahead and create that digital CAD file into the real world with the magic of 3D printing. I love it, you know, and like I said, it's a great risk to my channel because YouTube discriminates heavily against airsoft and air guns whenever you see this type of a technology applied. They do so because of the fact that they don't want to see firearms and 3D printing together. Having said that, none of that is happening on my channel, so the fact that they continue to censor and ban it makes no sense to me, but I want to share it with you guys the best I can. I'm going to go ahead and show you guys how. So if I really crank on it here, I'm looking at about 12 millimeter outside diameter. Your machine, your 3D printer, will not exactly accurately recreate 12 millimeters here versus 12 millimeters on your print bed, right? You'll have to see exactly what it is when you put 12 millimeters into your CAD program. What does it spit out? 12.3? Is it 11.7? Where is it at in the scale? After you figure out that value, you're gonna have to see exactly how large or how small of a tolerance it's gonna take on your print file to go ahead and emulate this 12 millimeters in the real world. Looks like I got about 22 millimeters, 21.8, and if I really gave it the right measurement, probably about 22 millimeters. The final piece of the puzzle: what's the distance between the air tube and the barrel up here, and what's the difference between the air tube and the barrel back here? Back here, right at the block, right there. It's going to be right about 4.4, 4.5, somewhere in that range. When I do these, I cut like 5 different tolerances of whatever it is, 4.3, 4.2, 4.5, and I'll label A, B, C, D, right? And then whatever one happens to be right, well, that's my new file. Even though it's a time-intensive process on this side, let's go ahead and get those parts cut. Alright dudes, brand new day, brand new morning, and I did kind of send it, right? I was going to make some test strings and kind of slide it on and slide it off and see what the perfect measurement was, but I have great faith in myself. Part of being Maccabee Speed is you have to have this undying belief in yourself that no matter what, you're going to be successful the first time. So I took my measurements, I drew this cool file up in a free Tinkercad program that I use online, and hopefully we get a cool part spit out today for our air gun. Now, it doesn't really matter like what exactly you're trying to build a part for, whether it's a Nerf gun, an airsoft gun, or a pellet gun like we're dealing with the air rifle today. This is all going to pretty much be the same type of a rhetoric. You're going to have your base piece, and then everywhere where there's a vertical overhang, you're going to have these supports. Got a couple hours to go, so let's just let it do its thing. Alright dudes, it's the next day. I know it's kind of a weird thing to see a multi-day filming episode, but this is kind of what not only YouTube wants, but also what I have time for in my schedule right now. I'm spread so thin it's not even funny. But I did have enough time to go ahead and get you guys a secondary main camera. One thing you guys have really been complaining about lately is the fact that when I change from my main camera to my GoPros, the quality just drops through the floor. So I went ahead and got another big camera for you guys to go ahead and really enjoy the show with. Let's check out this rail. Basically, this is what we went ahead and did for ourselves. A supportive barrel band with fiber optics that also utilizes the stock front post sight here, so that you could utilize this with no optic if you broke your optic in the field. But also what we've got back here is a cool little Maccabee Speed touch. I did go ahead and cut a quick end cap back there. Wanted to go ahead and inspect everything within the action before I put it all back together. I replaced all the seals in this area, and I also went ahead and replaced the breech seal on the back of the barrel as well. Now, one really cool thing that I learned throughout this process is the AEA gauge does fit this project, and the AEA fill probe O-rings definitely work as a breech seal for this platform. It's even maybe a little bit of an upgrade, right? It takes just a little bit more to go ahead and push this thing through past the O-ring than it did previously with the factory one. It gives me good hope that we're getting a really good solid seal and all the propulsion is going in the business direction it's intended to. Now, this rail itself is secured in 3 places with set screws that sit into brass heat set thread ends, and each one of those set screws has a nylon cup on the end of it, so I'm not actually damaging my air tube here. I never recommend anyone torque anything that's metal or steel onto a pressure vessel or onto a tube, so I always just use those nylon set screws, and that works really well. The weak point is where you thread it in, these brass pieces, right? If you put the brass insert, you'll never have problems, but if you don't put that brass insert, that's really the weak link. You want that coupled with those nice nylon tip set screws. I also went ahead and kind of inspected my hammer spring and everything that goes ahead and makes it work back on this end. I'll show you what we got going back here. Alright, This is my recipe as far as my hammer spring is concerned. I've got this little cap piece that I cut in replacement of the factory one just because I like to flex like that. And I've got this guy right here. You'll see that the spring guide that comes with this gun from the factory has a small bushing on it at this point. Focus, son. The spring guide that comes from the factory with this gun now has a bushing on it. That bushing gives me absolutely maximum preload on this hammer spring while still retaining the ability to cock it. If you put too much in there, it will not allow you to cock it, and you'll lose functionality of the gun. So it's a fine balance of getting the most power you possibly can out of it while also at the same time retaining that solid reliability and safe function that Diana brought to the table with this platform. Now, anytime you pull that back cap off, can be a little bit crunchy the first time you go to cock it. Everything kind of wants to reseat in there. There's a channel that the spring runs in. We'll just decock it now that's all set back. It feels a lot better already. Guys, I'll throw it down in the comments. Which one of these is the better camera? The original ZV-1 or the brand new ZV-1 II? Really bringing this thing full circle, I wanted to go ahead and touch on a couple of things. A, this AEA gauge is too large to fit through the factory wood stock that Diana brought to the table for this gun. Secondly, don't really have a grip or a stock on this guy yet, so I hope you see the direction in which I'm going with this airgun project. A lot of people really like this platform, and I was having extremely good luck with it before it took a shit on me previously. Now that we've kind of got it back into fighting fit shape, I'm very excited to see what this thing's going to be able to do for us once we really finish it out. Got a couple of special things going on the print bed for you guys right now. Let's go ahead and get those popped off and check it out. End of the build, guys. It's the end of the episode, and we finally got to the final iteration of everything that we've been working on across the entire episode. I'm really proud of what we've been able to come up with. Answered a lot of small problems that the Diana had coming out of the factory that we're just able to remediate with a little bit of thought and a little bit of out-of-the-box effort. So I can't tell you guys, I can't be more proud of this. The thing I could be more proud of at this point is the camera that I replaced the first new camera with and got to the right new camera with. This is the brand new to the channel Sony ZV-E10 version 2, and I'm extremely happy with this comparatively to the first one that we had earlier in the episode. Different point in the episode, different set of sirens, no change there, however. Now, as you guys can see, the eye relief is just really good between this scope and my physical retina. I can see perfectly, and the line of sight as well as the height that this is mounted at, really good for me. Your mileage may vary, right? You know, who knows? Your face may be a little bit taller or shorter than my own. But inside of that, I'm happy with how this project came out as far as the length of pull and the eye relief is concerned. There's not too much that can't be adjusted, so I think this is a great place to get started. However, I do think that this episode is probably bordering on the better part of 30 minutes now, so I'm not going to drag this all the way out to the range and do all of the testing that I really want to, like chrony, power curve adjusting, as well as the accuracy and energy at distance. Who's calling me? Who the hell's calling me? Scam likely. No. A message, right? Fuck, leave a message. It's 2024, leave a message. Nobody knows, nobody answers, no private numbers. Alright, where were we? I think we've been able to really go ahead and hammer out a solid package with this thing. I am happy with it, and I am happier with it than the poor disgruntled state that it was in previously when it was in that wood stock with the leaking check valve. This is great considering where we started. We were able to remount the 3-12 by 44mm UTG bug buster that we had on this initially because I saw absolutely no reason to change it. It was working exemplary for me the last time we had it out at the range, and I think when something works that well, it makes no sense in the world whatsoever to try and reinvent the wheel. Everything else pretty much changed up 100%, but I think that those were definitely steps in the right direction. This would be a great This is going to be a great place to go ahead and end this episode. But if you like this episode, give it a thumbs up. You want to see more content like this, make sure you subscribe for more. With that notifications button so that you can stay current on the channel as well as when these videos come out. If you really like what you saw today, make sure you share it so that other people can see it. I'll catch you guys in the next one.